Scarlett Blade. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Silent Night, Memoirs of a Royal Guard, Chapter 11. Fraternizing was a risky business for a royal guard. It was acceptable for regular guards to mingle, but it was often looked upon as unprofessional. This was especially true with partners. The officers would worry that we look after each other more than our duty. It was because of that fact that Iridescence decided we would not actively discuss our relationship with others. We wouldn't lie, but we wouldn't advertise the situation either. Those were her instructions to me. That made it seem wrong somehow, but I trusted her. It was our first time off together since we decided to be more than friends. Of course, as my punishment for being so oblivious, we went to file in Philly Alchemist Supply. She loved that store and its curious, eccentric proprietor. Our shopping was taking longer than usual, and the heavy scents were starting to get to me. I could feel my eyes watering. Runic File came out of the back in a cloud of smoke. He had a pair of goggles over his eyes and was generally covered in soot. Wiping the grime from his lenses, he wandered over to us. Iridescent smiled at him. "Good morning, Runic File. Another failure?" Runic File coughed and shook his head. "Complete success. I turned some quartz rocks into other rocks." He looked over at me quickly, stuck his hoof into a bucket of white goo on the counter, and then plastered me right in the nose with it. Anything that resembles a pinch or punch isn't always a wise thing to do to a guard. My reflexes started to kick in, urging me to fight back, but then I realized the smells had subsided. I wiggled my nose and then nodded at him. He nodded back. "Do you have anything new, Runic?" Iridescence asked, which was always a dangerous question. Runic reached behind the counter and produced a purple vial. "I do! This new potion is excellent." I was skeptical. "What does it do?" Iridescence asked cautiously. "That's a great question," he said with confidence, though it didn't sound like he actually knew the answer. "You see, I mixed together several things, including some great flowers that I found in the country. I'm pretty sure this combination will—" Oops. The potion fell from his hands and shattered on the floor. A plume of purple smoke filled the back of the shop where we were and sent many ponies scurrying out into the streets. I lightly coughed as the mist of powder overpowered my senses. Iridescent sneezed and looked at Runic wide-eyed. "Are we going to die?" Runic shook his head and said, "No! Maybe." I took Iridescence by the hoof and started to drag her to where the potentially faded cloud was not lingering thickly. Most of the shop was now inundated with the mist, and every pony else had scattered. I knew I should have been more concerned, but this was a pretty normal day for this shop. Thus far, the worst that had ever happened was me being transformed into a mare for 6 hours. I was pretty. It was weird. Runic came through the cloud, looking unconcerned. He took his goggles off and coughed. "Well, if it was going to kill us, we'd probably be dead by now. We're safe again." Safe was a relative term, of course. With Runic, I followed a 24-hour rule, but in this case, I didn't think I'd have to wait too long. Looking outside, I noticed the clouds were pink, and it had started to rain down brown liquid. Pointing a hoof, I asked, "Do those clouds look pink?" Iridescence looked, nodded, and then glared at Runic. "Why did those clouds look pink?" The Pegasus alchemist looked outside and then paused and thought. "Mild shared hallucinations. Happens all the time. Say, do you want to see my new rocks?" "For how long?" Iridescence asked. Runic shrugged. "I don't know. I guess until you get bored looking at them. I never do, but you might. Silent Night understands, though. We didn't have rocks in Cloudsdale." She meant, "How long will the hallucination be?" I said. He was right about not having rocks. I just wasn't as into them as he was. It had started raining pretty heavily now. Brown-looking water fell from the sky and pooled in the Canterlot streets. The smell of chocolate wafted in, but surely that was part of the side effect. "Oh, that," he said, moderately sad about our lack of interest in geology. Not long. A day or two, tops. Are you sure about the rocks? There were quartz in the morning. We're sure, I said, and patted him on the shoulder. Maybe next time when we're not seeing things. I think we're going to go. Runic File nodded. Well, okay then. If you're sure, I'll see you next time. Please come again. Iridescence and I left, and for some reason I knew we'd come back. She always said the risk was worth it. Runic made the best mare care products in all of Equestria. By accident, I assume. Walking out in the rain confirmed my suspicion. It was indeed the cause of chocolate smell. I stuck my tongue out. Yes, chocolate. We started to head back toward the barracks. It tastes like chocolate, Iridescent said, and I nodded. He really got us this time, I replied. Yep, was all she said as she walked in and headed to the showers. After all, we probably looked wet to other ponies, but as far as we could tell, we were covered in chocolate. I sat by our window looking out at the insanely different world my potion-addled brain had created. Anything new? Iridescence asked from her bunk. She had decided reading was the way to go. Less visual. The sun has come up and gone down 16 times and a house just floated by, I stated matter-of-factly. Iridescence quietly closed her book, set it aside, and slipped under the sheets. Done! She exclaimed and went to sleep. I think she had the right idea. Shining Armor laughed from behind the desk. Seriously? You thought a potion could do all that? Honestly, I did. I shrugged. Have you been to the shop before, sir? The captain's expression when serious once was enough. Cadence loves it, but it is no place for stallions. I'm glad you're well, though. Only you would show up duty under the effects of potion and not complain. I didn't think it would impact my performance. I guess I can't argue with that. Pink clouds, chocolate rain, and floating houses aren't necessarily security risks. Just be sure you keep me posted in the future if you're feeling like you're under the effects of something. Yes, sir. Should I assume everything is now handled? I asked. He nodded. Thankfully, yes, the elements of harmony have taken care of the situation, and things are back to normal. It seems strange to me that all of our major problems are now handled by civilians, I said frankly. Shining Armor nodded. I won't disagree with that. It has been odd. Here I am, a Royal Guard officer, and my little sister is off defeating Equestria's villains. The worst we get is our overexcited ponies that want an autograph or something. Still, some pony has to keep law and order on a daily basis. He had a good point there. We might not be heroes, but heroes didn't have time to help little old ponies across the street. They also couldn't be everywhere. That was our job. New recruitment line? I asked. The captain waved a hoof across the space in front of him. Join the Royal Guard. We're not heroes, but we're almost as good. Needs work. I'll let the ponies and press ministry work on it, he replied with a chuckle. Anything else to report? In my mind, I was fidgeting. On the outside, I'm sure I looked the usual calm, cool, and collected that I always did. Was the captain asking specifically about my relationship? How could he know? Nothing of consequence as of yet, sir, I replied, and then paused. If you return to the shop of Lady Cadence, the shopkeep has a vat of goo by the desk. Rub some on your nose and it dulls the sense of smell. That might save lives, Shining Armor said in a serious tone. I nodded gravely and stood in silence. All right, dismissed. I left him alone in his office. In general, you had to be careful around officers, but Shining Armor wasn't like that. He always seemed to be interested in what his ponies were up to, and that was above and beyond. The captain of the Canterlot Guard had a lot of responsibilities. Taking the time to check in with individual guards wasn't one of them. It made not telling him the truth feel even worse. He had not asked specifically, though, and I decided that it wasn't exactly a lie of omission. If things got very serious, I'd tell him myself. That is what an honorable pony would do. Oh, I hope you guys have had a wunderbar day.